You're a man we know for shoes, and you come out here wearing his socks. What's with that?
I mean, it's ironic, I admit. I should be wearing sneakers, right? I mean, most people, I'm sure, out there have shoes on. That's a good point. But no, literally, I just had these delivered to me 20 seconds ago. Didn't have time. Thought I'd just come out. Well, I'll put them on in a little bit.
All right. You know, in the TV business, Tinker, we like to call that is a tease.
Yeah,
so you're teasing us now. So I know we're going to get to that in moments. But first, I really have to get into the origin and everything you're about. And it's just truly amazing. I mean, you've designed all of these shoes, of course, you know, over the years. I mean, decades. We're getting old, Tinker. Michael Jordan, Roger Federer, just to name two. But where do you start? How do you get the creative flowing, you know, going when you come about creating these amazing shoes?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get it, you know, once in a while. I think that it's important at least for my process of coming up with solutions, is to actually go out in the world and spend time just doing stuff. And that's what this first image is all about. I spend time with lots of interesting athletes, and I also spend time participating in sports, even rock climbing. That's my daughter up there, and I'm the one taking the picture hanging off the cliff.
Wait a minute. You're okay with your daughter hanging off a cliff?
Yeah, well, I'm okay with her, but she's not okay with me hanging off the cliff. I will tell you that. She's way better. But the reality is, again, it's inspiration comes from observing. It comes from participating. It comes from, you know, essentially having relationships with all kinds of special people.
So, Tinker, it's all different kind of environments. You know, when you think of an idea, are you behind closed doors? Are you out there on a cliff? Where do you get your best results?
Well, I have to tell you that it's probably the most exciting and most inspirational thing for me to do. Actually, Chicago has a lot to do with some of my best work, which is to come and watch the world's greatest athletes perform. Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. I used to come here regularly to work with Michael Jordan and watch the Chicago Bulls, and I would always go back to Portland, Oregon, just full of ideas and full of enthusiasm to try and make a better product next time.
You know, you talk about the ideas, right? And they're so unique, Tinker.
Yeah.
But they are.
Some of them.
But the pressure of having to think of something original, and we're talking shoes.
Yeah.
What is that like? Where is the starting point for
I
you?
don't know. You know, I mean, you know, shoes have become a kind of a big part of modern culture, modern youth culture. I guess we'll pull up another slide here, and oftentimes I'll come back from a trip, whether it's to Chicago, could be returning from Europe, say
Nice.
Paris, and there's a drawing here that shows up in the upper left-hand corner, a sketch of the Pompidou Center in Paris, and I always thought that was a really interesting building, very controversial, and it inspired me to design the original Air Max, which is the shoe where you can sort of see the air cushioning, you know, the visible part. And that building was an inspiration, so I came back and started sketching after that.
And, you know, to think about the shoes, all the Air Jordans that you designed for MJ, and working with this guy, and knowing that he had to approve every idea, everything that you did, we all want to know, what's it like to work with Michael Jordan?
Well, I still do. He's still very active in his brand. We actually have a separate organization that runs the Jordan brand, and he's still very much involved, and he's still very much in charge.
Is he tough to please? I mean, he's such a competitor, as we know. You know, all he wanted to do is win, 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 and be perfect.
Yeah, he's challenging, and I think in a good way.
Right.
He challenges me and all of our teams to do better work all the time. And also, it's interesting because, you know, you think, well, we're designing basketball shoes, but we're also designing really a part of other people's lives as well, because people wear these products they choose to wear them, buy them, and wear them in their everyday lives. So it's kind of a big responsibility, and he takes it very seriously. So it's kind of fun.
That's for sure. And you're right, they do wear them in everyday life. Every day, people would go to work if they can and wear these shoes. And we all know this. I mean, Nike's mission has been around for a while. It's always been, right, to design for the athlete to improve performance. You work with Jordan. We see the fantastic designs. What's going on the inside?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of research that goes on in the development of these products that sometimes it's directly related to the athletes and what they need and want. We do a lot of physical testing, a lot of scientific work. And sometimes, again, it kind of goes back to the sort of some kind of feel that you have. And this is a good image that just shows what I guess you could say it's part of a process of designing a very specific shoe for pole vaulting.
Huh. Who knew you needed one?
How many pole vaulters are in the audience? Oh, there's one.
Zero?
Sorry to hear about that. I mean, it's not the smartest
but
thing.
a specific,
not the smartest thing I've ever heard of.
But a specific shoe for a pole vaulter. It's not something that's crossed my mind.
Yeah, and I coach pole vaulting at the high school level. And just like working with Michael Jordan, you have to really sort of understand your clientele, if you will. And so that image there is me standing there with a bunch of high school pole vaulters. But the next slide over is me goofing off with Renaud Lavillenie, who's the world record holder in the pole vault. And that's him going over a crossbar in front of the Eiffel Tower. He is the best pole vaulter. And then there actually is a little image there of the shoe that he's wearing right now. It's a brand new shoe. And then there's an old image of me pole vaulting. So I'm one of those dumb people like that one guy back there. There was one guy that raised his hand, said he was a pole vaulter. So I was a pole vaulter growing up. So sometimes it's all about your own personal insight. Just like I said, go out and do some stuff.
Now, as we all know, the Air Jordans, the shoes were stars themselves. You got to have a favorite. Give me one. Give me your favorite.
My favorite is the Air Jordan 11.
Why?
Because Nike told me to stop designing Air Jordans after the 10 because he had retired.
Is that the first time that he retired?
That was his first retirement,
okay,
yes.
Thank you.
So I was told that there was no way we could sell Air Jordans if he wasn't playing in them.
Wow.
And I disagreed and just kept working on the project anyway. And I had to track him down in Birmingham, Alabama with the Birmingham Barons.
Sure.
And meet with him underneath the grandstands with like a high school baseball team almost. But I spent time with him, and he encouraged me to keep working even though there were literally people trying to have me fired for spending all this time and money. And of course, we all know that it worked out pretty well. The Air Jordan 11, he unretired, partly because he thought the shoe was so cool, and he came... That's my story, anyway. I'm going with that one. But anyway, he unretired and won an NBA championship and then won 2 more and some more shoes, and it worked out great. So that's my favorite, partly because I was told not to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's great.
I'm sure you've never disobeyed anybody, ever, right?
Oh, yeah. I feel you. I'm just still stuck on the fact that the Birmingham Barons were upset with you because you were taking time away from his batting cage work, and maybe that had a lot to do with his future.
Who's this guy from,
Yeah, listen, that probably had a lot to do with it, but it all worked out. We got to talk design to storytelling. I think that's significant. What were some of the stories you wanted to tell, for Michael Jordan? And I mean, this is kind of cool, and I got to read this to the folks out here. I've read you drew inspiration from a World War II Mustang fighter plane, West African tribal art, a Porsche, a lawnmower, Afropop, and an elephant?
What can I say? Marijuana's been legal in Oregon for a little while. And, no, it's not true. It's just been legal for a little while. But I think you can sort of stretch yourself and try and do new things again if you're properly inspired and have an imagination. And I one time was watching a World War II movie. I think John Wayne was in it, and he was a fighter pilot in World War II, and he was flying a plane, and he was strafing the enemy with this plane, and there were dogfights and all of that. And it just sort of reminded me of the way Michael Jordan played basketball. So he would kind of float around the edge of the game, and then at the right moment, when he'd see an opening, he'd just be straight to the basket with the ball and do some gymnastic maneuver, and boom, it was a dunk, or it was a cool flip shot or something. And it just reminded me of that kind of, World War II sort of fighter plane kind of aggressive. I'm finishing this play.
And Jordan didn't look at you like you were nuts?
Several times, actually, but we began to sort of understand each other over time, and that was good, and we're good buddies, and it took a little while for him to understand me and me him, but it's been obviously a good
Very cool. You've referred to yourself as a provocateur, not a guy meant for the corporate world. And we could see that. You come out here in socks, for goodness sake.
I don't even have shoes on.
I mean, really.
It's crazy.
When you arrived at Nike's R&D shop in the 80s, that Renegade streak, wow. You said about designing what you called a Renegade series of sneakers. That's what you described it. Others called what you did revolutionary, not Renegade. These were the Air Max sneakers. How did that change Nike?
Well, the Air Max actually came a little bit before I worked on my first Air Jordan, which was the Jordan 3. But Nike was not doing very well, and I was the corporate architect, and just almost out of desperation, they asked me to start designing shoes. And I did, and one of my very first ones was the Air Max, and I had taken that trip to Paris. And I always felt like I just am a natural-born irritant, a kind of a provocateur, a disruptor. But if you are those things, and you have a good enough reason, and you think you can actually do something better because you've taken a different route, that can be very good for business. Can be very good for changing conventional thinking. And so I'm sitting here today, 30 some odd years later, talking about that process. And this image up here it's an early drawing that I did of Andre Agassi. It's 8 feet long and about 3 feet tall, and it's all done with chalk. And when I brought that into a meeting and said, this is what we ought to do with Andre Agassi, which basically was reinventing what tennis looked like and how tennis shoes worked, and bringing lycra and neon colors and all kinds of crazy stuff to this lily white sport of tennis, they thought, okay, this guy's... he's lost it, But it changed the way all tennis gear ultimately got designed and developed, and we had some good success with that. And this was the very first image that I brought in to essentially stir that proverbial pot and get people thinking differently. And it even says anti-country club, which was just my way of saying that Nike is not going to do tennis as usual.
It's perfect, though. Like, just thinking, I remember all those spots and everything surrounding Andre Agassi and what he was about, for sure. The inspiration for the concept of visible air, where'd that come from?
Well, visible air, the original is?
Yeah.
It really did come from my visit to Paris, and to look at this building that was all glass, and you could see through into the building and see all the inside and the outside of it. And in a sense, you could, it revealed everything about it to the person on the street. And I thought, well, that would be a good way for us to actually tell everybody about why Nikes have better cushioning, in this case, airbags inside. And no one had seen an airbag before until that design process had been fleshed out. And kind of a little bit out of order, but the Air Jordans also employed air cushioning and a lot of other technology. And it was all about air, like air, flying through the air, and it kind of fit with in an allegorical way, it kind of fit with the technology, and in this case with Michael Jordan flying around, and so Air Maxes, Air Jordans, Air trainers, everything. I guess that was just the way I started to develop sort of the whole notion of innovation at Nike. So there you go.
You know, Tinker, I haven't forgotten the shoes. We'll get to you after this question, all right? 'Cause, it seems like everyone here in the crowd and the audience are like, learning about creativity, right? And then we hear about you and your background. So tell them, do you have to be a rebel, a renegade to come up with these great ideas and go against the system to be successful?
I don't think you have to. In my particular case, I felt it was just part of my nature, and I just got away with it at Nike. I think there were a few people at the top that were maybe they didn't know exactly what I was up to, but they had maybe a little sense that maybe this guy had something going that would help the company. So it depends on your environment. I think for me, I think people tried to fire me about 7 or 8 different times, But when the sales kept coming in and the company kept doing better and better, that sort of eased up a little bit. So getting back to your original question, I don't think you always have to be disruptive, but sometimes it is necessary, and part of it is, if you're disruptive, you better have a good reason.
Right.
And if you're just being an irritating, pain in the rear and for no good reason, then that's not helpful, and it's not really a good thing to have in the workplace. But otherwise it can be, though.
Learning more about you and brought me Back to the Future, and the sequel to Back to the Future.
Yeah.
That would be Back to the Future 2. The director, Brian Zemeckis, came to Nike, I did not know this, looking for help with a gag, a futuristic special effect for the sneakers to be worn by, of course, Michael J. Fox in the film. And thus began the road to your latest triumph, the Nike Air Mag. Can you take us back to that film and talk about how it morphed into a 28-year quest?
I'd be happy to, actually, as a matter of fact. That's kind of part of the reason I came out without shoes. And I'm going to just slip over the slide, other than to say, that's me playing tennis with Roger Federer down there.
Oh. Very nice.
And I'm terrible, but he was nice enough to let me hit the ball back and forth. So anyway, it's fun to work with all these great athletes. And sometimes it's not athletes, it's the movies, or it could be other people in the entertainment business, rappers and singers and dancers, actors. So yes, I was involved in years ago the original sort of script writing of Back to the Future 2, so the second movie in the series. The first movie was a big hit, and so the second movie had a lot to live up to, and they were looking for some extra kind of gags to sort of put in there. So I was tasked with designing some products for the future, including a pair of shoes that, lo and behold, has still kind of become actually over time has become even a bigger deal. So maybe you know about the Back to the Future shoes that actually, when Michael J. Fox goes into the future, he's given these shoes by Doc, and in order to kind of look like he fits in the future, he has to wear some futuristic stuff, some clothing. One of bits of clothing are the shoes. He puts them on, the shoes come alive, they recognize him, and they lace themselves and shaped exactly to the shape of his foot. And he puts one on and he looks down and it does it. And then he puts the other one on and it lights up and it comes alive and he goes like, wow, power laces. I wrote that scene, by the way. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And they're right here.
Well, so all of these years later, so that was done in the late 1980s. So that's a long time ago. And many, many years later, we finally started to figure out how we could actually make a shoe that would do just that. So we've actually recreated the movie shoes, which just went out on auction. And I think they raised about $7 million for the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which is for Parkinson's disease.
Yep.
Thank you. And but part of our real goal is to take that technology and pull it away from being a movie gag and actually use it for real performance and help people in a variety of ways. And
can you put them on and show us?
Let's do this.
Yeah, because
So this is not the movie shoe. This is a Nike shoe that's not quite finished. It's kind of a stealth colorway, but you'll see it'll do something similar to the movie, to what happens in the movie. Well, I hope it does.
Can we get the cameras in there close to see if it lights up? And is it forming to your foot right now? Is it molding into your foot size?
It's just not making as much noise.
Oh.
So, and then that one didn't go quite as tight as I wanted it to, but these shoes do what the movie shoes.
Where do we get these?
You can get these. Thank you. And just so you know, by the way, before we get to that, if you want to loose them, you can manually override the automatic system. This shoe actually shapes to your exact foot. So I'm a 10 and a half. If I was a 9 and put the same shoe on, it would shape to my size 9 foot. But I'm a 10 and a half, and that's what it's shaped to. And so I can tighten them up. If I wanted to go play basketball, I could tighten them up even more, and then just to be like normally comfortable. So this is the future of adaptability and adaptable footwear. But more importantly, it's we have this really cool thing that sort of happened. It's kind of an emotional thing, but we know that of people all over the world who have disabilities. They actually can't tie their own shoes.
Right.
There's a young man named Matthew Walzer who came to us a few years back, and we figured out how to make a pair of shoes for him as he was transitioning from going to high school, from being in high school to going to college. He didn't want to go to college because his parents had to tie his shoes for him because he had no use of his fingers. And so we made shoes for him so he could be a normal college student.
That's great. Wow, that's great.
And so I think you can talk about performance and how shoes should fit really well so you can win Olympic gold medals and NBA championships and what have you. But also, we just want people to be able to participate in a normal life and to be able to do normal things. So these shoes will become part of a new future where people we can all participate in activities. So and be more normal. So how about that?
That's great. It's a great place to end it.
Yeah.
You can't get better than that.